You started. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to yet another fine edition of the Fishtown District's virtual stakeholders meeting. We have held several of these to, I think, much appreciation and success to really help our stakeholders navigate through, the current COVID crisis, make sure that we're bringing them to resources, both financial assets and programs. And we're certainly thrilled now to be joined by both Casey O'Donnell and Paul Marcus of Impact Services. As many of you know, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania recently released new funding programs available for our businesses. And Impact Services, who is a wonderful neighbor and partner of ours, have been doing this for a long time. They are a community development financial institution that we love to work with. Before we kick it to Paul to get started, Casey O'Donnell, I know, was walking around. I wondered if Casey wanted to say a few words as the director of Impact Services, and I want to thank Casey for all his good work. So Casey, fire away.
If I can, hold on.
You should have to mute one of them.
I actually have to turn one of these off. Thanks. Yeah, Mark, thanks for bringing us to this group. I won't say much. I was just walking around, and I'm here every day, and as are all of you, and everyone on this call knows what some of the conditions are in the neighborhood, and we're working together to tackle them. Our CDFI, which Paul will talk to you more about, has focused around K&A and the surrounding area, but we've expanded our work, and we're here to support businesses and people in the neighborhood that are looking to become small developers. The majority of our work is actually in workforce development and creating housing for formerly homeless vets, whether that be rehabbing row homes or converting old factories. We have about 200 units of housing at the moment. We're in the process of creating 10 more affordable homes in the McPherson Square area that Paul can tell you about. So if anybody has any interest in learning more about what we do, we work with Kay for a long time and Mark for a long time. We're happy to talk and hear how we can support you. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Appreciate it, and certainly appreciate all of you, what you and your staff have done over the years. I was fortunate enough in my prior existence as Chief of Staff for State Rep John Taylor to work with Impact and work with Casey. So we're certainly lucky to have them as partners and neighbors to the Fishtown community. So now I want to turn it over to Paul Marcus. Paul is the director of the Impact Loan Fund. Paul's done a lot of good work of bringing people to money and helping them really find ways to fund projects, whether it's development or otherwise. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul. So he's going to talk about eligibility requirements for these new programs, and he'll kind of walk you through the application. So Paul, take it away.
Good morning. Thank you for having us here. As Mark and Casey said, the Impact Loan Fund has been around for about 20 years. It may not be as well known, but generally we provide business financing in our target area, which tends to be a little bit to the north, basically from Lehigh up to Hunting Park Boulevard, from Fifth to the river. So we sort of, our core target area has always been in that sort of old Greater Kensington area, including Frankfurt. But as part of what's happened within the crisis, the COVID crisis, that the city and state have looked to organizations that can help identify and support the small businesses that are in need and that have more trouble finding the resources they need to stay open and to survive and reopen as is allowed, with the state orders. So, as part of that, a coalition of 17 CDFIs. CDFI is a Community Development Financial Institution, which means that we are basically chartered or approved by the Treasury Department, that we are a lender that focuses on supporting businesses in lower moderate income areas or that are historically disadvantaged. So there are 17 CDFIs that focus on small businesses across the state. and we've come together as a coalition, and the state asked us to help deploy the $200 million in grants towards small businesses. As part of that, over the past 30 to 60 days, pretty quick, even probably closer to the 30, we've worked closely together to structure a grant program that had the broadest eligibility and that identified how to target the businesses that were both most in need, may not have received previous support, and met the goals of the state. And so the way this is rolled out, we've worked in collaboration with the elected officials and DCD to structure the program, and that opened about a week ago yesterday. The broadest statement of eligibility is that anyone with any small business with less than $1 million in revenue based on their last filed tax return and fewer than 25 employees is eligible. Let me back up and say there are certain ineligible businesses, such as check cashing or money transfer services. There are certain other businesses that are prohibited under federal funds, and I'll show you where that list of businesses are. But beyond that list, if you meet those criteria of less than $1 million of revenue, fewer than 25 employees, and that you are based in Pennsylvania or have 51% of your revenue from Pennsylvania, you are eligible. So it's a pretty straightforward eligibility criteria, and we want to get as many people in the door as possible. Collectively, the CDFI Coalition hired a group called Lendistry that set up the application platform, which I'll show you in a minute. But locally, part of what we did, we set up a response center to deal with, both to do outreach and to deal with folks who may have some other localized questions or need additional assistance due to technology or language. And Tiffany Hudson and Akeem Dixon here are both on the call here, and they're busy answering email and phone inquiries that we're getting locally. So we do have that support, and if there are folks who aren't on this call or who may need some follow-up, we're happy to work with them. So with that, I'm gonna try to share my screen. If you can enable that, whoever's in control.
That work?
So, I think. So
Yep, there you go.
you all seen the Google Chrome. So one of the things that we do want to make sure folks know is that for whatever reason, because I'm not a technology person, the application is optimized for Google Chrome. We have heard of some folks saying, well, it's not uploading, it's not saving properly. Typically, if you move to a Google Chrome browser, that works best. So locally, you can just go to the Impact Services website. We have I'm actually going to go back to, you can just search it on Impact Services, so you don't have to remember any sub-sites. And we have a little pop-up that's going to show up right here. If you're ready to apply, you can click the button, but it's going to take you to our local landing page. So on that page, we do have some information about the fund and about the application. I'm taking you all the way to the bottom because the couple things that we've added in the past few days is an application guide, which basically gives you step-by-step instructions. And there are 2 videos around the application and uploading of documents. We're basically doing the same thing here. Hopefully my presentation is as good as the one that's recorded, but for folks who aren't there, aren't here, they can look at that. This does outline the requirements. We have a number of rounds of applications, not first come, first served. So all applications that are received by July 14th at 11:59 will be considered together. And they'll be scored based on the sort of priorities that were established in collaboration with DCED and the Pennsylvania C-DeFi Coalition. So you have time, almost a week, to sort of get in that first cycle. If you don't do it then or not prepared to, there'll be additional cycles, so you'll have more time. So you can apply on July 15th. It'll just be considered in the next cycle. I want to show you the pabusinessgrants.com. I'm not going to go to the site, but that is as the program updates and as there are additional information, that will have the most up-to-date information. We are updating our site regularly, but we may be a couple days behind. So that will have the most up-to-date information. I think there may even be an updated portal guide that may have been posted in the last day or so. So that'll probably be on our site within a couple days. So we have worked really hard to make it as easy as possible to apply. And so I'll take us there right now. And that, hopefully you'll see that and you'll pass along. One thing, so this is sort of our homepage. It says, see our impact logo at the top. There are 17 CDFIs. It does not matter which CDFI you apply under. We're happy to have you, but you'll get the exact same access to the funds and services if you applied under PIDC or another local CDFI that you might have a relationship with. Application pages all look the same. One thing I will mention, there's a document here, the applicant certification. This is a document you will need to upload later on. It downloads, you can see there's some check boxes and it's a fillable PDF here. You can either fill it in and save it electronically or print it out and upload it later. But just want to flag that for you because they will ask for it later in the process. So we're just going to go straight to apply now. It's going to pop open the application. The application's all on one page, so it's hopefully pretty straightforward. So I will do this a little quickly because filling out the application is fun. But basically, the initial part is information about personal information and the cell phone information is important. They may contact you by cell, by email, and by text. And part of what they do encourage is that if you do not, if you don't click this box, they will not be able to send you texts. So they do encourage everyone to click that box because then they find that the easiest way to connect with folks is usually by text. So we're going to do a pizza shop and we're going to go 19125. So basically you'll go through that, save and next. Then I'll pop over open the information on the owner. It'll carry down the information you set up there. It's possible this information is different. You can change it, but it does save some time. So we'll just put in an address here, Philadelphia. Oops. Pennsylvania, and county. If you have friends who are in other counties, that's fine. They're welcome to apply. And if you go to the pabusinessgrants.com, and if the business is in a different county, it'll identify the CDFIs that are supporting those counties. And for folks who you may know who are outside of Philadelphia, some of the folks have other services they can provide in addition to this the grant program. So date of birth, we'll go with 1969, February 4th. And then, so percent ownership, we're looking for one applicant. So if you're 100% owner, that's fine. You'll put in 100%. If you're a 50% owner, you can put in 50%. We do not need multiple owners to apply. And if you are a 25% owner, that's fine too. We're just looking for essentially what's called an authorized representative. So one person can apply on behalf of all of the business partners. And then you'll accept the terms and conditions and move along. So if your business is not incorporated, some folks may have a sign on their door that says John's Pizza, but really the business is in your personal name from a legal perspective. You can put in your trade name here. If not, they ask us to put in none, so it recognizes that there's an answer and it wasn't skipped. EIN, if your business is incorporated, you likely have a separate employee ID number. If not, you would use your social security number that's in there. And that's important because they will be checking across different databases to make sure that the information you provide is there. As we said, this is a grant, and we are looking to qualify people as opposed to disqualify people. Our biggest challenge is trying to make sure that we are supporting businesses and that we are trying to identify fraud. It is federal funds that are passed through the state, so our job is to ensure that we're providing funds to businesses who need it, and there are people who will try to take advantage. So that's part of the reason why we are doing cross-checking the information. So we'll just hopefully that's the right numbers. 215. And business type. So this, again, as I mentioned, all business types really are eligible. Even if you're a sole proprietor or you are self-employed or 1099, you can select whatever is appropriate. In this place, we'll select the incorporation, and we'll call it Pennsylvania. You can be incorporated outside of Pennsylvania. You will just need to demonstrate or certify that the 51% of your business is in Pennsylvania, or your business is located in Pennsylvania, and they'll verify that with you. And go with Philadelphia County. So a lot of these are required fields. So if you skip them, they will kick you back there. But one of the things, if they're a business started after January 1st and has not filed the tax return, they are eligible as long as they were in business by February 15th. Obviously, they do not have a tax return. There's an alternate requirement. So if your business started on January 5th, and you can provide a internally prepared statement of profit and loss for those from January to the March date to demonstrate business activity. They may ask some follow-up information about that. Again, in order to demonstrate that it was an operating business prior to to the shutdown for COVID. So in this case, we'll say we started in January of 2020. Business website is a required site. If you do not have one, that's not a problem. We'll just write none.com, which is apparently what we're supposed to do. Purpose of the grant. So we know folks have received some different forms of grants. Some people may have received PPP funds or EIDL funds or city grants. We're asking you to identify what you're most likely to use it for. You may use it for a number of different things. It's not formally limited. What you are asked is that you would not use it for something you already received funds for. So if you're using it to pay payroll, but you already used PPP for that payroll, you would need to use it for something different, that you're not double dipping. We encourage people to retain their records. Because it's federal funds, it could be audited. We are expecting to do a lot of grants, but just like all your other business records, you would save what records about how you might have spent these funds. So in this case, we're going to go with payroll. So the amount requested, as some of you may have seen, the funds are available in tiered grant amounts, so that it's from $5,000 to $50,000. There's a chart that pops up here. So based on your revenue, so if you made $875,000 on your last filed tax return, you'd be eligible for a $50,000 grant. If you made $45,000, you'd be eligible for a $5,000 grant. You can ask for less than what you're eligible for if you want, but if you ask for more, it'll be reduced down to the amount. So in this case, we'll say we're asking for $5,000, and that our revenue last year was $45,000. This is not specifically a grant to create new jobs. It's mostly to retain jobs and support existing businesses. So we're going to say we're not creating new jobs. If you are, that's great. As I mentioned before, you have up to 25 employees. That is as of February 15th, before the shutdown. The way that's calculated is the number of full-time employees plus part-time employees are each counted as a half of a full-time equivalent. So if you had 10 pizza delivery drivers that each work part-time, that would count as 5 full-time equivalents. So we can put in there 2 and 10, no jobs created, and 12 jobs retained. A lot of that's not about eligibility. It's about our reporting back to the state and the federal government about the impact of this program. Business demographics, B2B, business to business, sales to other businesses versus B2C to customers, or both. In this case, we sell to pizza to customers. And then a couple more questions again about your business. This is mostly about tracking information for our reporting, retail, and we're in the food business. For those of you who aren't familiar with the NAICS code, this is what the federal government uses to sort of organize information about businesses. I don't know what my NAICS code is, so we do have a handy link. And then there's a search bar, and we're going to go in with pizza and find our full service restaurants, 722-511. And that's the number we're looking for. Within our the priority program, certain businesses or trades have been identified as priorities for the state, as identified some that either were of high need or may have not received previous funds. So as part of the prioritization, there have been certain business types identified, and so that's important to be accurate about that. So in this case, it's not a women-owned business, not veteran, not disabled. Race, we'll say white. Ethnicity, not Hispanic or Latino, and it's not a franchise, not a rural. Obviously, as a statewide program, there are we are looking to serve the entire state of Pennsylvania, and the DCD and the elected representatives have. We do need to ensure that the funds are distributed. The half of the, as some of you may have seen, half of the funds will, at least half of the funds will be distributed to historically disadvantaged businesses, which the way it's a federal definition, which includes African American, Latino, Asian, Native American, and Pacific Islanders as part of those classes. The final section is a number of disclosures. So there is a targeting to support businesses whose owners are of lower income. This does ask for your last filed tax return for your household income. And we're just putting an answer in there. And then the question about participating on a designated commercial corridor. For most of those of you in Fishtown, on Frankfurt, Girard, Front Street, those are city designated corridors. So you would answer yes. If you're not, if you're more in the neighborhood and not on a corridor, you'd likely answer no. We are looking to try to do a comparison from the period of March to May of 2019 versus 2020. So let's say in the 3 months, March, April, May of last year, you did about $5,000 per month. You do not need an exact number. A rough estimate of revenue is fine. And then since you were shut down, maybe you did $1,000. That is, we are looking at losses and folks who suffered the most losses. I think most businesses were shut down, at least for a period of a month or two in Philadelphia. So I think that most people have those losses. Has the company received other COVID grants? You are not prohibited from receiving this grant if you received other grants. They do have a number of choices. You can only pick one. You're not penalized if you got more than one, but let's say we got a PPP. And then the question, an open-ended question, is about amount received. What we're encouraging is to, even because you can only put in one, we're encouraging you to identify the total amounts of grants received. So if I received 10,000 from my PPP and 5,000 from the city, I would put in 15,000 in this area. Then does the business owe any federal or state taxes? You will need to be current on taxes to be able to receive the funding, the federal and state level. If you have an existing payment arrangement, then you'll be asked at a later time to show that. If you do not, but think you do owe, we'd encourage you to get in touch with the IRS or the State Department of Revenue to start arranging that that arrangement. We have, and we can show you we have the information as far as the referral to those contact numbers that we can get to at the response center. So in this case, we'll say we do not. And then the last question is if an owner is incarcerated or out on parole, and I believe it's within the last released within the last 3 years, they would not be eligible. There's a federal requirement, and so unfortunately, that's we've gotten a number of questions about it, but unfortunately, we don't really have a choice about that. So in this case, we're going to say no. So that's the application. So I'm not going to hit submit because it's not a real application, but What then will happen is you'll get a confirmation email direct to you with a password, and what you'll do is you'll go back to the it'll take you back to the application page, and you'll sign into your account with the email and password. You may need to check your spam folder on this one. It is going to come from a, sort of an automated email, but if you, for whatever reason, cannot find it or don't get it, you should go back and put in your email and just hit forgot password, and they should be able to reset that for you. When you go back, you'll be asked to then upload the documents. The most likely documents you need are driver's license or government issued ID, passport or other acceptable photo ID, last filed tax return, and then if you're a corporate entity or other organizational owner, you'll upload your corporate document, certificate of organization, whatever is most appropriate. As we referenced, some people have a fictitious name certification. You'll also be asked to verify your bank information. The funds will be, if awarded, they'll be sent through direct deposit, and they'll want to make sure they can verify that to make sure that the funds can get to you as quickly as possible. Once you apply, you will be contacted by Lendistry. They'll want to make sure that the documents are uploaded if there are any issues. To be honest, the most contacts we've had have been technical issues about uploading. There are certain upload options that don't apply. So if you, it might say there's a tax payment agreement, but if you don't have one because you're current, then it looks like you may need it, but you don't. So most of the questions we do get are around more technical questions, and we'll try to help you with that. Obviously, if you have a question about your business or eligibility, we're also happy to help with that. This is the information on here is the main call center for Lendistry. So if you're having technical issues, this is really the best number to reach. We can't really see into the application system. So if there's something's uploaded or not uploaded or having issues, that they'll need to fix that. As far as our local contact center, that's on our website at the Impact Services. The information's here, the email address, the phone number, and someone maybe type that into a chat. And then we are responding same day. We haven't yet seen the level of volume, but we do allow for up to 2 to 3 days. But I think we're responding to almost everything within the same day, as long as it doesn't need some particular investigation. So let's stop sharing right now, and Mark, let me know what you want to do. Happy to take questions or go from there.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate all the detail you went through. So one of our stakeholders actually sent a question. They wanted to confirm, can these funds be used to create new jobs or bring on new employees?
So the funds have to be COVID related. So you will be asked to certify that the funds are being used to address a COVID-related impact. That can be used to reopen, so that, for instance, if you were a restaurant or other businesses that needed to modify a website or modify a physical space in order to reopen the business, to be able to accept customers or to find customers in different ways, those funds would be an eligible use of the funds.
One more question actually from us. Nonprofits cannot apply, is that correct?
Nonprofits are not eligible, sorry.
Took a shot. I want to open it up to the floor. If any of our stakeholders have a question, either type it in the comments or raise your hand. Ravi, I know you normally always have one.
I just like to hear myself talk. Thank you so much for that
Sure.
presentation. All right, just to hammer this home with me, 25 employees or less, but part-time employees count as half of an employee.
Yes.
Okay. Then is my LLC, for which I have an EIN, but I do like a 1040 Schedule C with my taxes, is that eligible?
Yes. So, we expect, some folks file separate returns for their business and then personal, but a lot of folks are, if they own, if someone owns 100% of their business, often it's considered a disregarded entity and shows up on their personal tax return. So if you're uploading, whatever the tax return you're uploading should be the one that shows your business on it. So if it's a separate business tax return, you would upload that. If the business information is on your personal, you'd upload the personal.
Okay, and then when we're uploading documents, you want both the sort of the person who is applying on behalf of the business's personal tax returns and the business's tax returns.
So we do not need an upload of a personal tax return unless the business information is on that return. So
Okay.
if the business has its own tax return, that's all you need to upload. If you have a personal tax return, like if your business reports its business activity on the personal tax return, then we need to see that. And the tax returns are really for two reasons. One is, as I mentioned about fraud prevention, it's to ensure if you're filing taxes, that means most likely you're a business. And then we are verifying the income threshold in order to size the grant that you'd be eligible for.
Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Rav. Thanks, Paul. Anyone else have any questions for Paul?
I have a question. I don't have a video, so I can't raise my hand. So I applied last Friday, and where it asked what you were asking for. So my business is down about $25,000, and so I put in, that's the amount I put in. I can't remember if it was 20 or 25,000, but that's what I put in. So when the decision's made, is it all or nothing? Do you take a look at my financials and then determine, okay, you'll get the full 20,000, or will it just be a percentage? How does that work?
As I understand it right now, that the eligibility will be based on the revenue. So I don't have the chart in front of me. So if you were eligible for 25 based on your revenue and you were selected, you would get the 25. If your revenue provided eligibility for 15, you would get the 15. I believe if you were eligible for 50 and only put in 25, then you would likely receive the 25. If you want to change that, I would call up. I think you will need to call Lendistry. We are unable to go in and change applications, but they can up until that closing period. So if you think you may have made an error or entered in something incorrectly, you can contact that call center and they can update that. Unfortunately, we cannot from our end.
So again, with what I entered in there, is there a chance that they would come back and say, here's 5,000?
I don't believe so. I believe it, and we haven't gone through an award cycle yet, right? This is the first cycle. So my understanding is that we expect to fund out the maximum allowable for that grantee. So that the scoring, the amount that'll be awarded during the first round will be awarded, to the folks that are prioritized, And then if you are not awarded in the first round, you do not need to reapply. Your application will stay active for any future rounds, and you'll be considered for during those rounds. Part of the reason we're doing rounds is that there is a requirement to meet certain geographic boundaries and certain other sort of subgroups, which are sort of part of the overall contract. So we'll do an initial award of funding, and then in the second rounds, we may need to adjust to make sure that the priorities are meeting the expectations of the state.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else have any questions? Going once.
We're around. It's no big deal. You can shoot us the question to that email address, and you know, we're able to respond, and you know, happy to troubleshoot as needed. And I think, you know, if there are folks who aren't on the phone, who either because of technology or language need some additional hand holding, we have folks who we can do that. We just need to schedule some time and do that. We've got some customers up in Kensington that, you know, that we have to, we're basically doing it with them, filling in the application and uploading on their behalf. So we can do that too.
I've got a quick
question. Yeah.
Yeah, Rob.
Hopefully my accountant has my 2019 taxes done by next week. If not, just accept 2018. 2018
is fine. Technically, they're not due until the 15th, and a lot of people file extensions anyway. So 2018 or 2019 is acceptable. If your 2018 happened to be $1,050,000 and your 2019 is $950,000, I would encourage you to use the 2019. We'll go off of whichever one it's the last filed. So if you have filed 2019, then you will need to use that. But just a consideration.
Thanks, Paul. And I want to thank Casey and Paul again, besides just taking the time today and taking time before this with me to kind of go through this. They have been very available, very responsive to our inquiries, our stakeholder questions. I know many filed almost immediately as soon as it went live. And Paul, you were great. Thank you with all the help that you gave. It's very appreciated. And especially with what's going on now, I know it's very necessary for people to whatever funds they can get. So not just I want to thank you both for today, but thank you both for all that you're doing to help us get access to these funds.
No problem, and happy to, you know, continue to provide advice. And you know, we, you know, as a loan fund, we tend to be a little bit to the north, but you know, we've definitely talked to folks and looked at projects south of Lehigh and for usually debt financing, and so happy to talk to folks and you know, give advice. The PIDCs came out with a very generous program you should all look at, that it is repayable, but it's 0% interest and it's very long term. So we know, I mean, I just have to be honest, we know that there will be more requests for funding in this program than the state funds will allow. And we've told people, and even folks who get awarded, that may not be enough for some things they need. So, you know, the CDFIs are part of this and are deploying this. And I think, you know, hopefully collectively, whether it's us or PIDC or Entrepreneur Works or any of the other CDFIs, that we can be seen as a resource to make sure you have the ability to reopen and stabilize over, you know, an uncertain time period going forward. So, you know, even for folks who may get awards, I'm sure there are going to be additional needs, and happy to keep talking.
Thank you, guys. And with that, I think this has been another informative program. Thank you all again for being part of it. Please continue to follow the Fishtown District on social media. Our website is fishtownbid.org. And if you have any questions, you can either email me, Mark, M-A-R-C, @fishtownbid.org, or Kay Anderson, that's Kae fishtownbid.org. And we wish everyone a great day, and let's keep pushing it for Fishtown. Thanks so much, everyone.